It was funny, they gave me some grief about it and made fun of me, but I was trying to get as much work in as I could.
Excited to know where we're going to be playing, and excited to have a city that is excited about having us.
We are now the Las Vegas Raiders.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Vegas Nation Blitz. I'm your host, Cassie Soto. It is the week that the Raiders have been waiting for. They are finally able to practice in full pads. Vegas Nation's own Heidi, Fang, and Adam Hill are at Raiders headquarters with the latest. Heidi.
Thank you, Cassie. It's Heidi, Fang here, and Adam Hill, and we're out front of the Raiders headquarters in Henderson, where training camp has been very well underway now for a few weeks. And looking ahead to the 2020 season, the Raiders are starting to get ready for their preparation in Carolina for the Panthers in Week 1. Adam, what have you seen and heard from the team as far as their mindset and what's happening on the field as they look to Week 1 in preparation?
Yeah, nothing specific yet. They don't really start getting into game planning and stuff until that week right up to the game. Really, they're focusing on themselves, but now they're just getting into football. We saw strength and conditioning for a couple weeks as there was no off-season activity, so they had to ramp up, get their bodies ready to get into a real training camp. And then 4 days of just shorts and T-shirts, going through the motions, kind of some walkthroughs. Now we've had a couple of days of hitting. They're in pads. They're popping each other at the line of scrimmage a little bit. They're getting physical. That's more like football. And you're hearing guys say, hey, we feel like we're playing football now. So it is a little bit of a different mindset, a lot more physicality. And we talked a lot about the younger guys. Now you get to see them how they actually play in pads, because you don't really know until you get pads on. Now they've got pads on. They're starting to get a little better feel for things.
Well, let's talk about some of those younger guys, because we heard from Derek Carr this week. We've heard from Hunter Renfrow this week. And what we've heard is there's nothing but speed on the offensive front. So Derek Carr now has a ton of weapons around him, and lining up against other defenses is going to be much more interesting in this 2020 season. So what do you think right now about the offense and what it looks like?
Well, a lot more tools at their disposal. I think that's the biggest thing. You had guys last year coming back, like Darren Waller had a big season, Hunter Renfrow had a big season, but they've got other guys that can really help them out. Henry Ruggs at his speed, we know about it. He can take the top off the defense. He can really open things up, and we heard guys like Darren Waller and Hunter Renfrow talking about that. Hunter Renfrow says, hey, my job underneath is a lot easier if all of a sudden the safeties have to go respect Henry Ruggs' speed. We know about that. We've heard about it, but now you see it on the field, and it is impressive. But then you've got a guy like Bryan Edwards that I think a lot of people aren't really paying much attention to. Bryan Edwards is a big physical presence on the field. When you walk out of the field, you see him. You know where he is because he's such a big guy, but he's deceptively fast as well. And as Derek Carr said today, hey, he's not a 4-2 guy. He's not going to fly past you, but he's way faster than you think. He's got those long strides. It helps him get open. And once he is open, he can really go make plays. He doesn't have to be open. Derek Carr said, hey, I throw the ball. He's going to win that battle. He's going to fight people off. He's so strong. So that's another weapon there. They've got all these different weapons now that is going to open up the offense and really allow John Gruden to use his full playbook, which I think is a really good thing for this offense.
Let's talk about the COVID protocol, because Max Crosby did return. He came off of the list. He did not have much to say about it during his media availability this week. But as you've seen the protocol happen, and now with somebody who was on the list and came off, what have you made of the different protocols, restrictions, things that the Raiders have put in place to try to fight COVID-19?
Yeah, and constantly John Gruden is talking about crushing the virus. It's just another opponent on the schedule. It's a 17th opponent that they have to take on, and I think they're doing a pretty good job with it. I think the entire league, we saw in Hard Knocks exactly what the Rams and the Chargers are going through. Very similar here with the Raiders. I can actually see the testing facility here, the lab, right over our shoulders here behind the camera. So, they're doing a lot of things right, and they're telling the guys, hey, even when you're not here, like, yes, the protocols are in place at the facility, but when you go home, stay home. Don't go out in large groups. Wear a mask. Don't congregate. Like all those things. And it seems like everybody's doing a good job. Very few tests, and the guys that have tested positive are now off the list. In addition to Max Crosby, Rod Smith, Devonta Booker, a couple of running backs, they're off the list now. So I think the team is handling it pretty well. I think the league is handling it pretty well as you can hope for outside of a bubble. And it seems like the NFL is making progress toward actually having this season, which is good news for everyone.
Well, there you have it. We're still hoping that someday soon we will have more answers to all of this and that the season can maybe proceed as we would normally know it. But for now, that'll do it for us here from Raiders headquarters. Back to you, Cassie.
Heidi and Adam, thank you both so much. Well, in other news, the Chicago Bears said they would not play in front of fans at Soldier Field until further notice due to COVID-19. Meanwhile, the Dallas Cowboys said defensive end Gerald McCoy suffered a quad tendon injury in training camp and will undergo season-ending surgery. And the Canadian Football League canceled its 2020 season, saying teams would have faced significant financial losses if they played during the pandemic. To give us the latest on Raiders social media, let's go ahead and introduce to you all Las Vegas Review-Journal's very own sports journalist, Leandre Fox. Leandre, it's great to have you here. What do you have for us this week?
So this week on social media, Raiders safety Jonathan Abram had a virtual hangout with a fan and his father. And the fan, Kyrie, said he has really big aspirations of becoming the general manager of the Las Vegas Raiders someday. So he was talking to Jonathan, and he said, I really don't know what I'm going to do if I don't become the general manager of the Las Vegas Raiders in the future. And Jonathan Abram gave him some really inspiring advice that said, hey, plan B is to make sure plan A works. And if you get to plan C, you get there when you get there. And it was just really inspiring to hear that and see that he was interacting with the fan and his father in that way.
Well, and speaking of players and fans, Leandre, it looks like Raiders tight end Darren Waller is giving his fans the opportunity to meet him come September.
Yeah, so through his Darren Waller Foundation on Instagram, fans can purchase tickets to join him at a fundraising gala with all proceeds going to the Darren Waller Foundation to help those in need who are struggling with addiction. Obviously, we know Darren Waller's story. It was a really big storyline on Hard Knocks last year, and we all saw the tight end that he grew to be throughout the season. And he recently announced that he's overcome his third year sobriety, so he's trying to help those who are in a similar situation get past their obstacles.
It's great to see the Raiders giving back. Leandre, thank you so much for those updates. We'll see you next week. Fans, before we head to break, let's take a listen to some of the best Raiders sound bites from this week.
Yeah, I don't know if you can see with my hands. I had splinters in my hands. All I had was a palm tree in my backyard, so I was sending them videos every day of me working and literally doing hand work on a palm tree, and I was messing my hands up. And
I want to improve that even more, but also blocking. I want to put some of that on film, but obviously catching too. My goal is to catch at least 60 balls this year.
Where did Raiders center Jim Otto play college football? Was it A, Miami, B, Penn State, C, USC, or D, Wisconsin? We'll be back with the answer.
All your listeners and followers, the best name of any podcast in the world is podcast.
It doesn't make good television if they walk in the door and be like, no.
We believe we can make absinthe work.
Whoa, I didn't order that. Did you just say that?
Tom Brady. And Tom Brady, he's a quarterback in the Boston area.
I'm not sure who you're talking about.
Get ready for every Raiders game with us. Vegas Nation Game Day will give you everything you need to know about each week's matchup.
I'm excited.
Vegas Nation Game Day coming to you on Sunday, September 13th at 9 a.m. for the Raiders season opener versus the Panthers.
Thanks for joining us here on Vegas Nation Blitz. Cassie Soto here. Pleased to be joined this week by former Pro Bowl tackle for the Oakland Raiders, Lincoln Kennedy. Link, how are things?
Wonderful, Cassie. How are things for you guys in Vegas?
A little warm, but so far so good.
Well, you know what? I live in Phoenix, so I share that warmth. It's hotter than 80 out there, so I know what you mean.
Well, the guys are definitely feeling the heat now, Link. Let's go ahead and jump into it. The guys are in pads for the first time this week. I know they're really excited to get things going. Finally feels like football and training camp here. But I want to ask your opinion on how much of a learning curve you think these guys and really everyone around the league has to overcome in order to be ready for week one.
The learning curve it's difficult to sort of quantify, but think of it like this. You prepare a certain way to do something as far as, in this instance, you exercise, you work out your own way, whether it's PX90 or whatever you call it, to get yourself physically ready for football. But the thing about football, because it is a contact sport, you actually want to put on about 20 pounds worth of pads, so you're going to add some weight, and then you're going to go full speed collisions into another man that's trying to equal comparable weight strength coming at you. That's asking a lot out of the body. And the only way that you can truly get your body conditioned to do something like that is to play football. So with this padded practice, yeah, you get a little bit of hitting, you knock a little bit of the rest off. But the way they kind of program or way they sort of put in the packages for padded practices, it's really hard to build that callus up. So even though we're looking at a little bit over more than 3 weeks away from playing football, almost a pure month from playing it, it's still going to be really hard for a lot of these guys to get acclimated until they actually go out there with game speed.
Well, hopefully it won't be too hard for a guy named Derek Carr, Link. This, of course, is his third year in Gruden's system. We got to talk to him a few days ago, and he got a little chippy with media. Not sure if you heard the quote. He said that he is tired of being disrespected. When you hear that, when Raider Nation hears that, what should they expect from their quarterback this year?
To play better. This is a very simple. You get what you give. And when you're out there, if you're tired of being disrespected, you got to play better. You got to make more plays. The thing is, in my opinion, the quarterback gets far too much credit when everything goes right, and far too much blame when everything goes wrong. But at that point, because it is a team game, Derek needs to trust his teammates that his wide receivers are going to get open, that his running backs are going to do the job, whether they're going out for a pass or running play. More importantly, his offensive line is going to do their job. And he has to understand, because he is the general of that offense, he makes it go. It's only going to go as far as he makes it happen, whether it's getting into the right check or audible when he sees a defense sort of taking the initial play away, or finding a way to go with the ball. So when someone says to me, like, I'm tired of being disrespected, the first thing on my mind is play better and you'll be respected more.
Well, Link, everybody is, of course, talking about Henry Ruggs III, his speed, his athleticism. But I want to know, who are you most excited to see just really have a breakout year this season, rookie or not?
Well, not so much of a rookie, but Foster Moreau, I think, is going to come in big. One, I want to see how he responds after that knee injury that ended in the season last year. But more importantly, I don't think he got as much credit as he deserved, because there was a couple critical times in games last year where the Raiders needed a big play, and he came up with it. And I know Darren Waller's a tight end. He's a success story, part receiver, part tight end. He's half man, half more than human. But at the same point, Foster Moreau is one that's big, that I'm having big expectations. And also, I want to see the growth on the defensive side of Cleveland Farrell. And the main reason is because there's such a high praise when you draft somebody that comes into the league at over fourth pick overall, high expectation. And then you have to live up to that expectation, or people begin to write you off as a bust. I know, because when I first came in the league with the Falcons, I was picked number 9, and they expect top 10 players to sort of have immediate impact and change the team's outcome. And it's a little bit different for offensive line versus defensive line, but for the same fact, the pressure is still on his shoulders. So I want to see the growth out of Farrell this coming season.
Well, sort of on that note, Link, give me your dark horse. Who's someone that you're still not sure about, but think that they could really be an impact player?
Well, I think it goes back to the conversation we had earlier about Derek Carr. Derek Carr is the type of player, in my opinion, who can make every throw on the field. Has the athleticism, has the smarts, has the wherewithal, everything. Now he just needs to put it together. And in this instance, especially this year, there's really no more holes in this offense. The last couple of years, you could probably make an argument for a hole here, not enough receiver depth, not a good enough running back core. Offensive line had injury issues, whatever you wanted to go to. And then, believe me, at his time with Gruden especially, he had to work through all those challenges. But now, there's no more excuses. Everything is plugged. You got playmakers on every single level at every position, and there's really no reason why this offense shouldn't have success.
Well, piggybacking off of that, how badly does the Raiders O-line have to stay healthy this season?
Well, not only do they have to stay healthy, but they have to find a way to play together. If you take last year in consideration, there were a lot of times where, whether it was injuries, suspension, or, just inconsistencies, that this 5 starting group didn't play together. This year, they're going to have to play together. And there's a lot of pressure that's put on their shoulders, because now they're already touted as one of the best, if not the best, offensive line in the National Football League. Well, I've always said, when you have that press out there before anybody plays in you, don't get yourself too big-headed, because you still have to go out there and do it. So they still have to go out there and land the objective of not only winning games, but keeping the running backs, successful, and keeping Derek Carr be able to stand upright in the pocket.
All right, Link. Well, thank you so much for the time. And hopefully next time we speak, it'll be in happier times. We can talk about some football getting going.
I'm hoping that it's in cooler times so I can stop sweating dog behind this camera. But yes, I will be you very much for your time.
We'll need a few months for that, Willink, but thank you so much. Once again, that was former Raiders Pro Bowl tackle Lincoln Kennedy. We'll be right back with more.
The answer is A, Miami. Otto played 15 seasons with the Silver and Black and is the only member of the original 1960 Raiders to be inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Vegas Nation Blitz. I'm your Vegas Nation podcast host, Heidi Fang, and I'm joined here with our NFL and Raiders writer, Adam Hill, and we're going to get into our AFC West breakdown here as we continue going through this leading up to the 2020 NFL season. So Adam, today we're going to get into the Broncos, and I have to ask you, what do you think will be the big key and impact player of this year for this team?
Well, I think, we hate to go with quarterbacks all the time, but it's very, very easy to look at this team and see where all the pressure is. They brought all these weapons in. They got Hamler. They got Jerry Jeudy. They brought in Melvin Gordon to play running back to team with Phillip Lindsay. There's weapons all over the place on offense, and that's because they believe in Drew Lock. So now it's all on him. He's got everything he needs in place. He's got a pretty good offensive line there. He's got all these weapons. Can he deliver? Because that defense is really good. You don't want to waste that, and we'll see what they can do. What Drew Lock can do and carry this team, it's all on him. They go as far as he takes them.
All right, just to take you out of your quarterback mindset for a minute, Adam, I wanted to ask, if you had to pick a group of players or a particular player on this team who's going to make the most impact on improving this team's record from last year, who would that be?
Well, I think the defense was good, and they were really good in stretches, but I think they need to be a little bit more consistent, and probably that just starts with Von Miller being the leader and, carrying them. You get the pressure up front. That's what he does. He makes plays all over the field, and he's a vocal leader. So Von Miller is going to be a guy to try to keep them a little bit more consistent. They were dynamic, they were explosive, and they were really dominant at times, but they've got to do that every single game, especially as they continue to let Drew Lock develop on the other side.
Great stuff, as always, Adam. Thank you for all your insight on that. And right now, everybody, stay tuned as we take a look here back on Raiders history and who was the first female CEO in the NFL and part of the Raiders organization. And that's Amy Trask here in this moment in Raiders history. In 1997, Al Davis made history when he hired Amy Trask to be the CEO of the Oakland Raiders. She was the first female to ever hold that position in NFL history. She held the position from 1997 until 2013 when she resigned from the post for undisclosed reasons. Trask, who was known to Raider Nation as the Princess of Darkness, grew up in Los Angeles and became a fan of the team while attending UC Berkeley. By 1982, Trask was attending law school at the University of Southern California in her native Los Angeles. And coincidentally, the Raiders had just moved from Oakland to LA that year. Amy took it upon herself to call the team's headquarters to ask for an internship. It was granted, and she worked unpaid as an intern for the Raiders. In 1987, she was hired to work in the Raiders legal department, and by 1997, she was the team's CEO. In her tenure, she was Al Davis's right-hand woman. Though she has praised Al Davis for embracing diversity and for hiring people based on their merits, she and Davis also had their fair share of disagreements. One of those disagreements was in regards to trading John Gruden to the Buccaneers in 2002. Trask, who has often been referred to as one of the most powerful and influential women in NFL history, can now be seen on CBS Sports Network and is also the chairman of the board for the 3-on-3 Big Three basketball tournaments. And that'll do it for this moment in Raiders history. We'll be back next week.
Kind of thinking it was going to work out with the Ravens, but then it's like you get back and you get cut, and then you're on the practice squad, and so that was kind of tough. But just maintain a positive attitude through that, and coming here to the Raiders was a miracle, honestly, and being able to prove myself in a little bit of the time at the end of the 2018 season, and then get an opportunity last year. It was a lot of times where I had to talk. It was about how I talked to myself because I was working in the back of a grocery store in 2017, 2018, and nobody was really believing in me, so it had to be on me and the small group of people that was around me. So it was a tough journey for sure, and it's great now. So it just provides a little balance, just seeing where I was before and where I am now. It just kind of keeps me at an even keel.
All your listeners and followers, the best name of any podcast in the world is podcast.
It doesn't make good television if they walk in the door and be like, no.
we believe we can make absinthe work.
Whoa, I didn't order that. Did you just? What? Yeah, did you just say that?
Tom Brady.
Who?
And Tom Brady, he's a quarterback in the Boston area.
I'm not sure who you're talking about.
Welcome back to this week's final segment of Vegas Nation Blitz. Cassie Soto here alongside Allegiant Stadium insider Mick Akers. Mick, unfortunately, some bad news to report over at the site of Allegiant Stadium this week. A worker was injured in a boom lift accident. What can you tell us about what happened, and how is that worker doing now, if we have any update?
Yeah, so last week on Thursday, they were doing some finishing touches up on the exterior of the stadium. It looks like they're doing some panel work. I don't know if some of those are damaged during the construction or not, and they were kind of just waiting until everything was pretty much done before replacing those, but that's what it looked like. So on the south end of the stadium, boom fell over, and a worker crashed down with it and was injured. They said he was, he was conscious, talking to responders and such, but they took him to the hospital. And since then, we haven't got an update. I reached out to OSHA, and they said, that we won't be able to provide anything further until the investigation is closed, which, takes a few weeks. So I don't think we'll hear anything on that end for a while. But, obviously, a project of this size, we don't hear very many accidents or injuries occurring over there.
Yeah, Mick, well, you mentioned that, and to our knowledge, this is one of the more serious accidents that we've heard about in over 2.5 years of construction there at Allegiant Stadium. Where does this project fall in the national accident rate?
It's actually pretty low. They Mortensen and McCarthy said they fall, one third less accidents, at the national rate. So obviously we haven't heard very many. This is, I think, the first one we heard since a few months into actual construction going in, when some of the steel was going up. A worker fell, I think it was like 20 feet or something, and was injured. Ever since then, we haven't really heard, anything major. So obviously just some of the coronavirus positives and such, but, they put all those protocols in and, implemented higher safety standards and such. So, it seems like, when something does happen, they take it seriously, and, they'll provide information, and, obviously they take steps to, mitigate these things.
Yeah, well, a speedy recovery to that worker there. And final one for you here, Mick. UNLV did announce that it is, in fact, postponing its football season until the spring. The Mountain West coming out with that announcement. What is the university now trying to do to recoup those losses that they're getting from, I think, the record-breaking season tickets that they sold?
Yeah, so obviously Allegiant Stadium, is a big deal for the Raiders also, but UNLV football as well. They've been playing at Sam Boyd for, decades, and it's kind of aging. So, it's nice to get, upgraded facility here. Over 7,000 season tickets sold, by far the best they've done, with UNLV football. So, with that being pushed to the spring, right now, some fans are, might opt out. So they gave them options of opting out, putting the money towards, the deferred season, or you can donate the money to, the athletics to help, take the financial hit. And with that, they also started a momentum fund where they're trying to raise $1.5 million by the end of the calendar year, which will, supplement some of the money they lose through football and other activities with the athletic department. But obviously football is one of the main money makers at the school with basketball as well. So, just going to have to wait and see with that, how big this, financial hit they're going to take is with the 1.5 million, which, could grow if basketball is also pushed as well.
All right, Mick. Well, we will see what happens on that front. Thank you so much for the updates, as always.
Thanks, Cassie.
That will do it for this week's episode of Vegas Nation Blitz. If you're looking for more Raiders content, check us out at vegasnation.com. For our Vegas Nation crew, I'm Cassie Soto. We'll see you next week.